Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Welcome back to another virtual shadowing session with Arushi's Dental Club. And we are 67 of us here, so we are going to start now. Today, we have Dr. Avni Jain with us. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining. We have much to learn from you. And on this note, the floor is yours. We are ready when you are, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I hope you all can see my presentation and I'm audible. Okay, so let's get started. I'm Avni Jain. I'm a BDS and I did my MDS from AB Shetty Dental College in prosthodontics. So I'm a prosthodontist and at the moment I'm based in London. I have my Instagram page which you can see. It's dental shots underscore lawn. We'll learn more about it in our presentation today. So let's get started. So in the year 2014, I completed my BDS and then I prepared for MDS for 1 year. And then fortunately, I got Prosto in AB Shetty Dental College. And then I finished my MDS in the year 2019. Immediately after that, I moved to London along with my husband in the year 2019 and started preparing for the licensing exam. Um, so let's see. Why did I choose to become a prosthodontist? So here's the story. When I don't know how the curriculum is right now, but when I was doing my BBS, we had this activity of fabricating or do interest. They know how to do really nice carving and you'll fall in love with them. And then there's one more type of category in which you learn to do the work. You put in a lot of hard work to your work, and that's how you learn it. So I was basically the second category, the latter one, and I was not very great at the start, but then gradually I started learning. I started putting a lot of hours into it. I would take my articulator to the hostel, and I would spend hours and. Even during the night, I would do the teeth arrangement. And while doing all this, while doing all the struggle and everything, I basically developed an interest in prosthos, and that's how I started uh, uh, dreaming about the day when I'll become a prosthodontist. So after that, I completed my graduation. I prepared for 1 year, and finally I got Prosto in AB Shetty Dental College. So today I'll also be sharing my experience as a postgraduate student. So first about the place, the AB Shetty Dental College, it's located in Mangalore. Lovely place. You have beautiful beaches. You have nice food, amazing food. So it was like, and the weather is really beautiful. So it was like a complete package. And the best thing about AB Shetty Dental College was the faculty over there, very well experienced. Also, a really important thing, if you are planning on becoming a prosthodontist, or on taking prosto as your master's subject in future, is that you need to have a really great lab, a really good equipment, which AB Shetty had. We had everything. We had CAD CAM. We used to fabricate all ceramic restorations. We did uh, the cast partial dentures. We did casting. We fabricated metal ceramic restorations. We did complete dentures, removables, everything, literally everything, except the implant supported processes. So that was actually sent to the external lab. Other than that, everything was done by us. So Yeah, that was true. Our lab was our first home. We literally lived there. The schedule was really hectic. It was like in the morning 9 to 4. It was all patient time, and after that, after 4 p.m., it was all lab work, and we had access to our lab 24/7. So we literally lived there. The best part was that you could go to the lab as per as your convenience, but there was loads and loads of patients and loads of lab work. So yeah, so we finished. We used to do the lab work and we used to do the patient work. Now, something which we really didn't appreciate during that time was doing the lab work and was not having any external lab support. So everything was done by us, and uh, because of that, if I think now, it was like understanding how the thing worked. Let's say if you do a mistake during your clinical work, it will be reflected on your lab work, and how if you do a mistake in your lab work, it will be reflected in your clinical work. So in order to understand that, you need to do both the things. You need to know how a good lab work is done and how a good clinical work is done. And at the same time, we learned how to manage those difficult situations, those mistakes that you can do, and how to avoid them. So yeah, so that was our postgraduate experience. As a postgraduate student, you also have to do thesis, you also have to do publications, you have to do survey, and there was library dissertation, and there was loads and loads of clinical and lab work. So um, uh, you basically select the topic for your thesis, your LD topic, that is library dissertation topic, your survey topic. During your first year, you get them approved, and during the 3 years, you do the study, you do the research work as well. So this is basically the curriculum that is there as a postgraduate student that everybody has to do. Um, Also, when you are a postgraduate student, you will learn how to do a PowerPoint presentation. You learn how to do a Word, because you'll be basically giving loads of presentation, loads of seminars. So you'll learn how to use a PowerPoint, how to make your presentations interesting. uh, you'll learn how to use a Word, Microsoft Word, because you'll be editing your survey report, your thesis, your library dissertation. Also, you'll learn make how to use a DSLR, because you'll have to click your cases, pictures of your cases, and you'll be presenting them at the end of your case, at the end of your exam. So after 3 years of MDS, you have your exam, which is a 4-day exam, in which you basically do a complete denture work and then a fixed denture work, fixed prosthesis work, and there's a case presentation and there's a viva. So in case presentation, you basically present your 10 of the best cases that you have done during your post graduation, and they definitely need to be uh, really good. They need to be special cases, not nothing common or usual. It has to be special cases, and based on all of that, they basically judge you how well you have worked, how much of hard work you have done in your 3 years. So you definitely need a really good camera, and you definitely need to learn how to do a really good how to create really good photographs. Initially, I was not very great at doing photography, but then I gradually learned the photographs, how to click great photographs. So yeah, it's definitely a complete package when you do your post graduation. And yeah, so it was not all hard work and all, work all the time. There was definitely fun and lovely memories that we made during our post graduation. We had this lovely tradition of making of having parties, that is making having your party after a thesis submission, or having a party after you successfully completed MDS, or when you joined your MDS, and and a birthday celebration. So we were like 27 PGs, 9 in each year, and we were all like a family. So yeah, and also you have these amazing conferences that you go to, and you attend these conferences. We had loads and loads of fun while attending. This is a picture from Rishikesh, and this is from the Chennai conference that we went to. So it is not all work and no play. There's definitely a lot of work, but there's fun also.
85, honey.
So finally, in the year 2019, we completed our MDS. This was my batch of 2019. And we also had this really cool tradition of clicking a photograph by getting a photograph clicked by a professional photographer, and which used to be framed. And there's a wall in our lab, so it used to get used. We use every year has to do this thing, and the photograph is basically placed on that wall of photograph in our lab. So this is basically that photograph, and so yeah. Now, so after I completed my MBS, I moved to London, and I immediately after finishing my MBS, I moved to London, and then that's when I started studying for the exam, the licensing exam. But that is the ORE or the LDS exam, but immediately after that, COVID happened, and the exam was postponed, and I couldn't really do much because they didn't. There wasn't any date, so it was really difficult for me to keep myself motivated. I was finding it difficult to study because when there's no date, or when there's no exam, they tell you you don't know when the exam is going to happen. So it's always very difficult to keep yourself motivated during that time. And yeah, so that's when I thought, what can I do? How can I keep myself motivated? How to keep studying? So I started my Instagram page, that is dental shots _lawn, and initially it was all in the form of uh, one second. Yeah. So it was all in the form of pictures that I used to draw on a piece of paper, and then I would just scan them and place it on on my Instagram page. And I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and gradually I thought, like, if only I could make some certain topics easy to understand. And because prosto is it can be very difficult to understand if you are not able to imagine the thing. So that's how I started my Instagram page. I gradually learned how to draw digitally. I downloaded these apps, and I started drawing it online, and then I started posting it. Then I realized if only I could make them move, I could make them animated, then it will be even more easier to understand. If you know how the denture is moving, or how a partial denture is moving when forces act on it, it would be so much easier to understand. And I loved teaching. Even during my masters, I loved giving seminars. I just used to enjoy that. So this was like a platform for me also, and for the people who started following me, to make things easier and to understand them. So So yeah, so I started gradually. I started learning animation. I started doing a lot of research on how you can do animation, and that's how I started animating. So basically, on my page, I try to make prosto, mostly prosto. Initially, I used to do other subjects as well. I started making them I make animation, I make drawings, and I try to make prosto simple and easy to understand. So yeah, that is my this is my one of the recent posts that I have done. I try to take certain very simple topics, very basic topics that are that could be very difficult to imagine. So these are some of my older topics, and this is the video showing on my page, and this is the animation that I have done pretty recently. This is one of the older diagrams that I did a few months back. It's been a year since I started dental shots. So this is my story behind dental shots. And okay, so now how to become a dentist in UK. So, in order to become a dentist in UK, you have to give exam. The exam is known as Overseas Registration Exam, that is ORE, or the LDS exam. Both the exam, these are two different exams, the ORE and the LDS exam. Now, the ORE exam is actually conducted by GDC, General Dental Council, and the LDS is conducted by RCS, Royal College of Surgeons. Both the exam, you can give either of the exam, and you can become, after clearing that exam, you can become a dentist. Both the exams are licensing exams. Both the exams, they have two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is about theoretical, that is basic science and clinical, but it's MCQ based, but it's like you have extended EMQs and single answer questions. So ORE part 1 is like that, and then there's part 2. Part 2 is all clinical. You have to do clinical procedures in that. So ORE and LDS exam, they happen like part 1. It is usually once or twice in a year, and part 2 is generally twice or thrice in a year. So one of the challenges during this process is getting a seat for the exam. So it is usually somewhere around 200 students who can sit for the exam, and you need to be lucky to be able to book the exam. So this is how it happens. Few months before the exam, they open the seats, and it's like a tatkal booking. So you have to go online, and you have to get your seat on that. So, and the seats, they get over like in a few seconds. Like, I don't want to dishearten you all, but that's the reality. You have to do this for both the parts, part 1 and part 2. So you sometimes people, they wait for 1 or 2 years to get a seat for the exam. And after you have the seat, you give part 1, and if you have successfully cleared your part 1, you go for part 2, and after that you can practice in the UK. So that is how the whole process works, the ORE or the LDS exam. After giving the ORE exam, you can practice as a general dentist in UK. It's not the specialist dentist. And yeah, so the exams, they are a bit expensive. I'm still going through the process since they postponed the exam. Last year, I was supposed to give the exam last year, and then they postponed it. Now they'll be conducting ORE part 1, mostly in the month of September, but they haven't announced any date. So let's see how it goes. So yeah, so that is how it is for ORE or the LDS exam, and how to become a dentist in UK. Okay, so let's discuss some cases. As a prosthodontist, you should know how or what type of cases you basically treat, or when you are doing a post graduation in prosto, what all different type of cases you can treat, or what all are you going to learn. So you learn about complete dentures, about movable partial dentures, about smart designing, about TMD cases, the conservative management of TMD cases. And you also learn about the various implantology, how to rehabilitate. You also learn about how to rehabilitate uh, if there's a patient who has lost their ear or their nose or a finger or eye, so you learn to rehabilitate that as well in prosto. So yeah, so that is all you learn. You also learn how to give how to fabricate metal ceramic dentures, or metal ceramic restorations, or all ceramic restorations. So all that is done as a prosthodontist. Now let us see this case. Um, this one, this is one of the case from my post graduation, and she was a lovely lady. Uh, in this patient, she had a completely edentulous maxillary arch, and there were three teeth present in the mandibular arch. Now, as you can see, the teeth, they are, you can see in the OPG as well, the teeth are periodontally strong, they are root canal treated, and there are two possible treatment plan that you can do in this situation. Either you can extract all of them, or you can give something over it, you know. So extracting them won't be a very nice approach, I would say, because they are healthy, they are periodontally strong. And if you give something on top of it, like a overdenture, it'll help the patient to have proprioception. So that's the main aim of giving an overdenture, tooth supported overdenture. This is not implant supported overdenture, this is tooth supported overdenture. So whenever, so overdentures, so basically we planned to give overdenture in the lower arch and complete denture in the upper arch. So whenever you are giving overdenture to support it, you basically get support from the teeth. In this situation, there were three teeth, and this helps the patient in proprioception. It helps in maintaining the height ridge, that is, the bone loss won't be there, or it will be less. So that's how we planned this case. And now the only problem with this case is that you have these three teeth, and as you can see, they are not parallel to each other. You can see the two teeth are going like this, they are angulated, and one teeth is like this. So now all these three teeth, they are not in same direction. So what happens in this kind of situation? So if you don't treat this situation and you just try to give an overdenture over this, what will happen is, since they are not in the same path of insertion, the denture will not sit on this. It will be difficult to sit the denture. So what do you do in this kind of situation? You basically make them parallel to each other. So how do you make them parallel to each other? We prepared the teeth. They were root canal treated. We reduced them in height, and then we fabricated these copings. Now these copings, so basically what you do, you give a coping like a telescopic denture. This is what we call them. You basically give copings on top of these tooth. You cement them on top of these tooth, and these copings are basically parallel to each other. And over this, a complete denture comes. So how do you make these copings parallel to each other? This is how you make these copings. You mill them. So whenever you are milling them, you place it on the surveyor, and you mill them in a way that they have the similar path of insertion, and they are parallel to each other. So this is the process of fabricating a telescopic denture, and you mill them, and you then finally fabricate your denture. The process after this is similar to your conventional dentures. That is, you do your complete you fabricate your copings, you cement them, and then you make a final impression. After you make the final impression, that is, you do border molding and everything. After you make the final impression, you basically uh, make your do your jaw relations, do Facebook transfers, transfer it to your semi-adjustable articulator, and do the teeth arrangement and fabricate your dentures. So, so yeah, so that is how you fabricate your telescopic overdenture. Now let us see the second case. Um, this patient, she had few teeth present anteriorly and a couple of teeth posteriorly. Now, the issue with this patient was that the teeth were not periodontally strong. As you can see in this OBG, there is a lot of bone loss. One thing that you can do is you give a partial denture, or another is you can go for, since the teeth are already mobile, you can go for something like an immediate denture. So let us see what is an immediate denture. So this patient, we discussed the case with her, and we told her like she'll be able to get a denture immediately after getting her teeth extracted. So that is immediate denture. You extract the teeth, and then you give a denture on the very same day. So that's we discussed the case. She agreed. The advantage of this type of treatment plan is that the patient gets the denture on the very same day, so they don't have to go through all that trauma of not having the teeth. Also, it helps. It helps like a stent, so it allows the tissues to heal after the extraction. And so yeah, so we've extracted. So that is how, this is how you go. You don't extract all the teeth at the very same day. You first extract the posteriors. So the treatment plan is staged in immediate denture. It goes like this: you first extract your posteriors, and you make your you do your secondary impression with the anterior teeth. You fabricate your special trays, you make your secondary impression, and then you do your teeth, your jaw relation, and uh, after that you do your teeth arrangement, and you go for drying. Now all this is happening for your posterior teeth. That is, you'll be basically putting teeth over here in this area, and then you'll be basically doing the teeth arrangement. After that, what happens is the patient goes back. You tell the patient to come after so and so day, 3-4 days. In the meantime, you remove these teeth on your cast, not in the patient. On your cast, you remove the teeth. That is, you trim these teeth, you round the ridge with your burr on the cast, on the articulator, and you basically add the front teeth to the to your denture, and you fabricate the denture, keep the denture ready. On the day after 3-4 days, the patient comes back. You basically extract the rest of the teeth of the patient, suture them, and you give the final denture. So that is how immediate denture are made. You don't extract the whole all the teeth on the very same day. You extract them in stages, first the posteriors and the anteriors, and the whole thing is done in the lab. You basically remove the anterior teeth which are not yet extracted, and you round in the teeth, and you give the denture to the patient on that same day. So the patient gets the denture the very same day. So yeah, this is case 2. Let's see what is there in case 3. Yeah. So this patient, he actually came for you can see this teeth, it's root canal treated, and he just came for a crown over this teeth. Now, whenever you have to give a crown over a teeth, you need to reduce that tooth a little bit so that you can create space for your metal ceramic restoration or all ceramic restoration. But in this situation, when we examined the patient, we saw that there was a lot of loss of vertical dimension, as you can see in this picture. There was a lot of vertical dimension loss, and there was literally no space to place a crown over that tooth. And as you can see, there's a lot of palatal at region. The tooth loss has happened a lot of in the palatal area, and there's loss of vertical dimension in this patient. So in this situation, if you go just to rehabilitate that one single tooth, you'll not be able to do that. Either you'll have to reduce the tooth structure a lot, which will ultimately compromise your restoration, because it'll not have enough retention and resistance form, and finally the crown will keep getting failed. So what is the solution in this kind of scenario? In this type of scenario, you generally go for full mouth rehabilitation. The patient had a few missing teeth, and the patient also had like the palatal area of these teeth, they are lost. So and again there's a missing teeth over here, and there's loss of vertical dimension. So we decided to raise the vertical dimension a little bit, and rehabilitate all of the teeth by giving them crowns on all the teeth. And the patient also had midline diastema, as you can see. So we try to correct that also. So you also do full mouth rehabilitation. You also learn how to do full mouth rehabilitation as a postgraduate student, and you do a full mouth rehabilitation as a prosthodontist. So, okay. Another thing that you learn during post-graduation is how to do smile designing. So this patient, she was pretty young. She was just 19 years old. She got these crowns from somewhere, and she was not very happy that the crown, it was opaque and they were a little bit out, and as you can see over here. So she came to us and she wanted to get these rehabilitation done. She wanted so we decided, as you can see in this scenario, the tooth they are yellowish a little bit, they are discolored, and we definitely had to rehabilitate these two teeth. So we decided to give all ceramic crowns for these two and veneers from canine to canine. We discussed the case with the patient and we explained her the treatment plan, and she was happy to go for the treatment. So we prepared we removed the crown, we prepared these two teeth for all ceramic crowns, and these three for veneers. So in veneers, you basically do very minimal preparation at somewhere around 0.3 mm. So you basically prepare the teeth. You have a special burr for that. You prepare the teeth. So that the burr basically helps you in not exceeding the dimension and it helps you in not going further ahead. Or you can say allowing you to do only that much of preparation. So we prepared these teeth for the patient, and we made impression, and then we fabricated all ceramic crowns, asked the patient to come back, and there was a trial also before giving her the final restoration. So what you do is you make temporary restoration over these teeth after the preparation is done. So in order to do that, you first make a mock-up. What you do is you make primary impressions, and you mount it on your semi-adjustable articulator, and then you do a mock-up on your articulator with the wax. and you show that to the patient, and you basically make a template kind of thing, and you fill temporary restoration in that template, and you place it in the patient's mouth. So that's how you show this is temporary, you have not cemented it. That's how you show the patient how it is going to look after your veneers are cemented. So that's how went through the whole process. We showed her how it will look. She was happy with the results, and finally we fabricated the veneers and cemented it on the patient, and she was really happy after the results. So yeah, so that's all. You all, I think we are open for the questions. If anybody has any questions, we can discuss that. Now I
Ma'am, can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for an amazing presentation, ma'am. We still have participants coming in, they're so late.
Oh, is it?
Yes, ma'am. So we do have a few questions in the chat. If you'll say, I'll read it out for them and
Yeah.
you can answer them. So Ria is asking,
Yeah.
ma'am, if we have to do post graduation from UK, how to proceed?
Yeah, so if you have to do post graduation, first of all, you should know that after, if you're planning on working here, you can't do that after post graduation, which means you have to give ORE or ABS. But if you want to do post graduation, there are various universities. Each university has their own way of doing that, as in they have their application process. It's not like an exam in India how it is. You have to give a national exam. It's not for that. It basically has a statement of purpose and whatever they've done. You and basically you have to make your application stand out from rest of the applications. So you have to show them how good you are, how really serious you are for the course. So that's how you do it. You send it to them, and you basically that's how you select. They select you. It's not actually on the basis of any exam. They just it's application based basically.
Ma'am, Kaushik is asking, ma'am, could you be able to walk us through your preparation for the ORE exam and some tips on how to prepare for the exam? And also, is it better to attempt the exam after BDS or after MDS?
Okay, so I'm still preparing for the exam, but I'm happy to share whatever my experience has been. For the ORE exam, the part one, it's mostly like theory. You have to study. There's a pink book, and there are different books, and there are different Facebook groups over there. So you don't need to do any courses as such. Like, this is my suggestion. You don't spend money for part one. It's mostly self study. You can go and you can prepare it. You generally need around 4 to 5 months to prepare to do the preparation for part one. This is all for part one I'm talking about. You can go and there are a lot of Facebook groups where you can find out what all study material is there. Everyone is happy to share that with you, with everyone. And for part one, basically there's a book called Pink Book, which is very common, and you prepare for that. You study that. You have to know it in and out. Basically, you need to know each and everything for that. And for part two, obviously you need to do courses, and there are various courses out there. You need to practice a lot. So in that, I would suggest you can spend money in that instead of spending for part one. Part one is doable. There's a lot of course. Also, that I have seen till now is that they are very particular about you knowing how their system work. It's like they have these law and ethics, and you have to be very well aware of that. The system here and the system out there is in India is completely different. There's a lot of difference, and you have to get accustomed to how things work over here. And that is actually what they are trying to judge in this exam, in the part 1 exam. And so yeah, so that is how you basically, there's also a Telegram group out there that has all the material, and that is all the practice MCQs over there. You can join that. Feel free to ping me on my Instagram page. I'll be happy to share with that you all. And other than that, you basically need to know all the guidelines that are there. So they have all these bodies who publish all these guidelines for each and every treatment plan. For example, if you should know how to go for extracting a third molar, there's a guideline for that. There's a guideline for on conscious sedation. There's a guideline on how to manage osteoradionecrosis patients. So you need to know that. You need to know what is written in that, and the questions are basically based on that. So that is how the exam is. Part 1 for ORE, it's like a 2-day exam. Part 1 again, it is like a 2-day exam that again has 2 papers, paper A and paper B. Paper A is mostly basic science, and paper B is mostly clinical based. And for LDS again, it's a single exam. It's like a 6-hour exam on a single day. So you have to, and both the papers are actually on the same day. So that's how worry and is there. Also, how to attempt, when to attempt. One suggest. So again, there's good at Kaushik asked me this question. There's again one more important point. There's a criteria when you are applying for ORE or ORE, not for LDS. This is for ORE, that you have to give IELTS, that is the English exam. But if you have been recently graduated and it should be less than 2 years since you graduated, that is BDS, not the MDS. So since you have graduated, you don't need to give IELTS. You can skip that part, and you just have to fill a form in your application, and that ways you can save 15,000 rupees for your IELTS exam, and you don't need to do that. So also it's like, it's actually, it doesn't matter that much if you are a BDS or an MDS, because it's all basic that they are asking. It's all law and ethics, and it's all how their system works. So maybe, yeah, if it might help a little bit, but there are people out there who have done BDS and they have cleared the exam. So it's not impossible, I would say. It's doable. But again, there's an advantage if you have done BDS, and you can go for the application process, and you don't have to give ideas immediately if you have immediately finished your BDS. So that ways you can save. This is something that I did. I finished my MDS, and after that I started preparing for the exam. And IELTS can be, it is not very tough to give. If you are planning for the English exam, it's not impossible, but then more than judging how good you are in English, they are actually the exam is basically based on how you know the tips and tricks to clear that exam. The exam is super lengthy, and this is for the English exam. I am telling you need to be very quick in finding your answers. So if you want to save your money, and if you want to do a little bit less hard work, I guess, then apply for the exam immediately after your BDS. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So next question is, what is the difference between ORE and LDS exam, and is ORE difficult or is LDS difficult? Is there any separate preparation required for LDS, like any additional topic? So basically they're asking ORE and LDS, what is the difference between the two exams?
Yeah. So One difference is ORE is conducted by GDC and LDS is conducted by RCS, that is Royal College of Surgeons, and ORE is the General Dental Council. After both the exams, you get a license. You can work as a dentist over here. One important aspect is that after LDS, if you clear LDS, you can put LDS as a degree after your name, which you can't do with the ORE. Other than that, the course is same. The exam pattern is almost same. There are few changes here and there. Uh, One more important thing is that for ORE, it's like a booking for the exam. It's like a lottery system, whereas for LDS, it's like a lucky draw. So what's the difference? I'll just tell you now. For ORE, they open the exam immediately, like 3-4 months before the exam. So they open the booking system 3-4 months before the exam, and you go there and you book your seat. If you are lucky, the seat gets over in 30 seconds, in within a minute, within a seconds. And you basically, if you're lucky, you get a seat and you can appear for the exam. Whereas for LDS, let's say the exam usually, again, I'll just finish this point first. For LDS, it's like the exam, it happens in April. So they open the seats in the month of September. Now, the opening of the seat, the process is like that. They open it, they put it on their website that we are open. You send your application right away along with your documents, and there is a lottery system. So they basically find out your they give a name. If your name comes in that lottery system, you will get exam. Otherwise, you have to wait 1 year. So LDS part 1, it happens once in a year. LDS ORE part 1, it happens once in a year. So the frequency of ORE is more as compared to LDS. Again, the number of seats in ORE is somewhere around 200, and the number of seats in LDS, it's somewhere around 140. So again, the number of frequency and the number of seats are a bit less in LDS compared to ORE. But generally, people, they try to apply for both the exams, because you never know. If you are not able to crack one exam, you'll have to wait for one complete year. So if you have the finances, I would suggest apply for both. If you're lucky, you might get. If you're not, you'll have to wait for one more year. So yeah.
Ma'am, next question is, after getting license to practice in UK, will we be eligible to practice in Canada or New Zealand also?
I don't think so. No. You have to basically give the exam over there again.
Someone is asking, is the syllabus for ORE and LDS the same?
Yeah, it's almost the same. There are few changes. LDS is mostly like clinical. It's not totally basic. Like they ask very rare questions from anatomy and physiology and all that. Whereas ORE, it's the paper A is about to ask questions from anatomy, physio, dental, DADH, and all that. So yeah, but then LDS, it's almost very, maybe 1 or 2 questions you will get from anatomy. Again, that is clinical based. It's not like barrier, the patient is working and there is vision or something like that. So they'll ask something like in LDS and ORE. It's questions are not direct. The questions are super lengthy. You need to be very fast. You need to be so thorough with your course that you are able to deliver your answers very fast, because you will find that the time is very less and the questions are very lengthy. So if you are not, you should be able to pick up quickly what they are trying to ask from the question, because if you spend a lot of time reading the question, you might be able to not able to finish your rest of the MCQs. So and they are not straightforward. It's mostly scenario based, clinical scenario based, even the basic science questions. So yeah.
Inza is asking, what is the difference in the difficulty level in the UK as compared to India? I think they're asking for the MDS exam for India and the ORE for UK. What is the...
Yeah. It's actually different. I don't think you can compare it like that, because in India the pattern of MCQs is totally different, and in UK it's totally different. It's not MCQ. It's like extended EMQs, and it's like a single best answer. So the pattern is different, but I would say it's definitely doable. People have been able to crack it. Part one is not that difficult. You have to be thorough with your course, but also for part one, if you are able to get 50% marks, you are clear. It's not like how it happens in India. Like, even if you clear the exam, you need to get a rank, and then you will be selected for the course or for the college, depending on your rank. So there's no rank system over here. It's like you complete the process, you get 50%, and you appear for part two. Part two is a bit tricky. I would say you need to be very good with your work, and you need to be very confident, and you need to be there are different courses there, so it's definitely not that easy, but it's not impossible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That's all the questions we have. Okay, we have another question. Ma'am, after completing BDS, should we have to get clinical experience of some years and then apply for ORE, or will it be better if we apply directly after internship?
First of all, you need to have your final degree of this, that you will be submitting it along with your application. And then clinical experience, you need to show 1400 hours for this thing, clinical experience. But that you can show because you have done as a clinical work you have done during BDS. So you can show, and you can get a document from your principal or your dean from the college. So you can immediately apply after internship, or even during internship. You just have to show 1400 hours of clinical work that you have done in a clinical setting. It doesn't need to be in a clinic or something. It is fine if you show it from because you'll be working in your college as well. So you can show that, and then you can apply for the exam.
Ma'am,
So
they're
yeah.
asking how much cost for ORE part 1 and part 2 and study cost. I think they're asking overall.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just quickly summarize the expenses that you will need to do. So if you are not in UK, you'll have to travel for the exam all the way here. So you need a visa. You will need a visa to travel. You'll have to book your tickets, so expenses for that, and then you'll have to stay over here because you'll be coming to UK. So it won't be 1 or 2 days. Obviously, you are going to have a vacation over here. So yeah, so that is one. Then when you are applying for the application, when I did, there wasn't any this thing application fee, but I don't know how it is. I heard that they have started charging for processing the application, so you'll just have to check that on the GCC website. But other than that, you have to you need to have your you need to know the expenses of that. And then when you are applying for that, if you are giving IELTS, you have to, that is around some 12 to 14,000. I think when I gave it was 12,000 rupees. Now it's around 14,000. So you have to give for that. Then you are getting your documents from various, let's say your college, you'll be getting your clinical experience or your good standing certificate from the council. Your let's say if you're registered in it's the UP Dental Council, so you'll have to get a good standing certificate for that. So that's somewhere around 1,000 bucks, 1,000 rupees. So you'll have to get that. And other than that, you'll have to get a NARIC document, NARIC. So this document you'll have to basically it's like a equivalent. So you'll be submitting online. You'll be submitting all your degree and everything, your mark sheets and everything, and we'll giving you an equivalent. You'll have to spend for that. I don't remember how much it was, but so you'll have to spend. Just check it online on the NARIC website. It's you'll have to spend for that. Then after all this is done, you collect all the documents. So this whole process itself takes 3 to 4 months. It took me around 6 months, because back then I had no idea what is happening, and I had no idea how to do it. So searching and finding and figuring out things takes time. And then if you are giving English exam, you have to send the original mark sheet to the exam. It takes somewhere around 15 days to get the result, and then somewhere around a month to get the mark sheet to you, so that you can send it along with your application. So yeah, so you get you make the whole package, application and all these documents, and you send the hard copy to the GGDC. So when you are sending it to the UK from India, it's going to cost you somewhere around 4-5 thousand. So because it's like a big bundle, so 4-5 thousand for that, the courier charges and everything you have to do. It is hard. You have to send it by. It's a hard copy. There's no online submission for the application. So that is there, and I don't know if there is any application fee submission or something. I don't know how it is right now, but if that is not there, so that is there. After that they process your application, and then they tell you, okay, everything is fine, you can appear for the exam. So this is done. After this, you go for booking your exam. So part one, whenever they open the booking system, part one is somewhere around 800 to 900 pounds, and when you clear your part one, part two is somewhere around 2,000 pounds, something like that. So, and then obviously I would suggest not to go for any coaching for part one, so you can save your some amount of money for that. Then again, whenever you are giving part, you'll again have to travel all over here. So that expense is again included. I don't know how much travel expense and all that is there, because I didn't travel. I'm based in London, so I didn't spend for that and for the visa. And after that, part two, you'll have to do certain courses. Few people, they keep a mannequin and a compressor and all that set in their room. So some people, they buy it second hand, some people they get it first hand. So you have to spend for that. You have to spend for the instruments and for the rubber band and all that compression trays and everything. So that expenditure is also there. So yeah. I hope that makes sense to you all.
Yes, ma'am. Someone is asking, this will be our last question for today, why UK is better than other countries to practice dentistry?
So when I started figuring out how to, where to, because my husband, he was initially in the US, and initially I thought of moving to US, and then we gradually figured out that if you are planning on moving to US, there are a lot of expenses that is involved. Like you have to give the exam, and then you have to do DDS. So financially, there's a lot of investment if you want to become a dentist in US. But in UK, it is comparatively, I won't say it is less. It's a lot of money, but it's comparatively less. And then again, it's number of years are less for becoming a dentist over here, compared to, you don't have to do your graduation all over again, or DBS all over again. Over here, you just have to give the exam. It is time taking, definitely. It is, you need a lot of patience, but it's definitely less compared to Canada. Canada also, I think you have to finish the exam, and then maybe you can study, or you have to give the whole exam and everything you have to do. So comparatively, it is less expensive. The expenses are less, and the number of years are less. If you're lucky, you get a seat for the exam and you're able to clear it, then it usually takes somewhere around 1 to 2 years. Because of the pandemic, everything is slowed down, so obviously things are a bit slow at the moment. But as far as I know, the people I have met till now, people have been able to clear and finish the whole work, and have started working in somewhere around 1 to 2 years or something like that. So other than that, Clearly, if you are talking like professionally or globally, I think it's same everywhere. Every country has their own pros and cons. It's nothing. I don't think it's like this bad or better. It's always there are some advantages. There are some disadvantages. It's really upon you what you want, I think.
Well, on this note, thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate that you took out the time, and we all have learned a lot from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful. You all learn. Feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram if there's anything you all want, or you want to learn anything, or if you have got any questions. Feel free to reach out to me. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Take care.